Hello friends and welcome to a lecture on value oriented education. The main objectives of our today's deliberation are to know the origin and concept of values. We will try to understand the value oriented education. We shall also try to know the difference between education and value oriented education. And finally, we will try to understand the ways for incorporating value education. Let me first of all give you a brief introduction about the concept and origin of value. Let me begin by quoting one of the greatest scientists on earth, Albert Einstein, who once said, "Try not to be a man of success, but rather try to be a man of value." Value literally means something that has price, something precious, dear and worthwhile, hence something one is ready to suffer and sacrifice for. In other words, values are a set of principles or standards of behavior. In the words of John Dewey, the value means primarily to prize, to esteem, to appraise and to estimate. It means the act of achieving something, holding it, and also the act of passing judgment upon the nature and the amount of values as compared with something else. Values are regarded desirable, important and held in high esteem by a particular society in which a person lives. Thus, values give meaning and strength to a person's character by occupying a central place in his life. Values reflect one's personal attitudes and judgments, decisions and choices, behavior and relationship, dreams and vision. They influence our thoughts, feelings and actions. They guide us to do the right things. Values are the guiding principles of life which are conducive to our own development. They give direction and firmness to life and bring joy to it. Values are like the rails that keep the train on the track and help to move smoothly, quickly and with direction. They bring quality to life. Value education is a term used to name several things, and there is much academic controversy surrounding it. Some regard it as all aspects of the process by which teachers transmit values to people. Others see it as an activity that can take place in any organization during which people are assisted by others who may be older, in a position of authority, or are more experienced, to make explicit those values underlying their own behavior, to assess the effectiveness of those values and associated behavior for their own and others' long-term well-being, to reflect on and acquire other values and behavior, which they recognize as being more effective for long-term well-being of self and others. This means that value education can take place at home as well as in schools, colleges, universities, offender institutions and voluntary youth organizations. People, especially the young, are confused about their values and value system. They are facing value conflicts and dilemmas. This is mainly due to the dramatic and far-reaching socio-cultural and political changes that are taking place in our country and other parts of the world. Besides these, there is a breakdown of traditional values without proper replacement, lack of adequate role models, conflicting ideologies and double standards practiced by people in position of power and influence. At the same time, there is a new awareness among people about human dignity and rights, a greater concern for the poor and the oppressed, the sick and the old. In the light of all these, it is but natural that people are confused about proper and sound values. Many young people openly reject some of the traditional values and question dogmatic beliefs held sacred for centuries. Often it happens that such people do not find replacement for the traditional values, and hence a kind of vacuum is created in their lives. This is not desirable, because in the absence of values, they have no principles or foundations on the basis of which they can face life situations, make choices and decisions. A life without proper values will become chaotic and disastrous. It will be a boat without a rudder. To guide our life in the right path and to embellish our behavior with good qualities, we need values. Value education means inculcating in the children a sense of humanism, a deep concern for the well-being of others and the nation. This can be accomplished only when we instill in the children a deep feeling of commitment to values that will build this country and bring back to the people's pride in work that brings order, security and assured progress. Through value education, we like to develop the social, moral, aesthetic and spiritual sides of a person which are often undermined in formal education. Value education teaches us to preserve whatever is good and worthwhile and what we have inherited from our culture. It helps us to respect the attitudes and the behavior of those who differ from us. Value education does not mean only imposition or indoctrination. Value education has the capacity to transform a diseased mind into a very young, fresh, innocent, healthy, natural and attentive mind. The transformed mind is capable of higher sensitivity and a heightened level of perception. This leads fulfillment of the evolutionary role in man and in life. Now, let us talk about the origin of value. It is to be believed that a German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, is said to have used the word values first time in 1880. Till then, the word value was used as a singular noun meaning the measure of something. For example, the value of labor and money. It was also used as a verb meaning to value as esteem something. Nietzsche used the word values in plural to denote moral attitudes and beliefs that were personal and subjective. It is of interest to note that he, along with several other thinkers, believed that values were not necessarily conducive for building strong personalities. In the modern democratic societies, values are considered indispensable. Since then, the concept value has undergone radical change. Now, let us try to assess the nature of values. Value has been defined in diverse ways. The philosophers, the educationists, the administrators, the psychologists, the sociologists all have different perspectives about a value. It depends upon one's mindset or orientation as per the discipline one has studied. Different viewpoints have been expressed with regard to concept of a value. Number 1, Allport observes, the term value means the relative prominence of the subject's interest or the dominant interest in personality. Number 2, Edward Bregman, a psychologist, observes, in the most elementary sense, value means whatever is actually liked, prized, esteemed and desired, approved or enjoyed at any time. It is the actual experience of enjoying a desired object or activity. According to Clyde Colquhoun, value is a conception, explicit or implicit, distinctive of an individual or characteristic of a group of the desirable which influences the selection from available means and ends. Values are the standards or guidelines for an individual's life. Values are influenced by an individual's experiences, desires and specific situations. Values steer our life's journey. Values are not static. Values are modes of organizing conduct. Values are acquired subconsciously in many ways. Values possess both cognitive and affective dimensions. Values can be structured and restricted through process of reflective thinking. Values animate an individual. They move him around in his environment as they define its attractive and repelling sectors. Values energize individual to actions. The value of a thing is on account of the fact that the thing has the power to satisfy our desires. Anything has a value if it relates to the purpose of an individual which he has in his life. Anything which has utility has a value. Values are felt sometimes partly and sometimes wholly. Values are influenced by emotions. Values are derived from several sources and values are helpful for survival. Now, let us trace out the basic characteristics of value. A value has its own worth and importance. A value is subject, community and national oriented. Value is the result of interaction between personal and impersonal elements. Value is means as well as an end. Value is desired preference. Value is a cherished idea. Value is a strong belief put to action. Value is an internalized idea or thought. Value gives direction to human action. Value is an abstract idea which is cherished, expressed, demonstrated in behavior and affirmed publicly. So, let us discuss some of the essential components of value. A value has three-pronged structure which covers all the possible aspects or dimensions of human personality. Number 1, cognitive aspect. A value is an idea abstract in nature. More is the idea clear, strong will be the value. Therefore, it is to be assumed that a value is related to mental activity and cognitive development about an idea, thought or an object. Number 2, affective aspect. A value possesses a strong emotional bond with the idea, thought or material object. Happy association is a secret of a value. Feelings, sentiments, attitudes are involved in one's value structure. In fact, values are the cherished goals, preferences are desired things, involvement of emotions and feeling is the secret of one's actions which is pleasure giving in the long run. Number 3, psychomotor aspect. A value results into an action or behavior. This aspect is the final stage or culmination of a value. The first two aspects, cognitive and affective, pave the way for action. Therefore, action is the acidic test of one's values in life. Now, let us talk something more about value oriented education. Education opens up our mind and value oriented education gives us purity of heart too. Education provides us with skills, but value oriented education provides us with sincerity too. Education extends our relationship with the world, but value oriented education links us with our family members too. Education makes our living better, but value oriented education makes our life better too. Education teaches us to compete with others, but value oriented education encourages us to be complete too. Education makes us good professional, but value oriented education makes us a whole human too. Education takes us to the top, but value oriented education takes the whole society to the top. Education gives us capacity of better learning, but value oriented education gives us the tool for a deeper understanding too. Education gives us Anna, but value oriented education provides us Ananda. Education may bring limitations, but value oriented education is for liberation. After all, right education means that knowledge which helps us to attain liberation. Formation of character through education had its important place in Indian education. In the Education Commission of 1882, only moral education was recommended. During pre-independence and post-independence, several commissions and committees recommended character education, religious education and moral education. According to National Education Policy of 1986, moral and religious education were broadly defined and coined into value oriented education. Dear students, let us distinguish between value oriented education and moral education. The concept of value oriented education is more extensive in comparison with the concept of moral education. Moral education is a constituent of a value oriented education. Value oriented education is developmental and it is based on expected values. On the contrary, moral education is static and it is based on the ideals of society. In value oriented education, all round development of human is considered, whereas in moral education only ideals of individual with its relation to society are considered. Value oriented education is scientifically based, but it can't be said with determination whether moral education is so based scientifically. It is so because in moral education customs, faiths and traditions are reared and sometimes reflect in the religion. Value oriented education consists all the component parts like individual, society, nation, environment and universe etc. But in moral education only relation between individual and society is emphasized. In moral education, each society fixes its own ideals and it is the endeavor of the society to keep these ideals stable. Therefore, individual's behavior is restricted to individual and society. There is a great impact of religion on society and therefore religion is reflected in individual's behavior. We preserve it in the name of customs and culture. But in value oriented education, the changes in human behavior are studied in its new perspectives and propagated through various medias. So, we must acquaint ourselves with progressive outlook of value oriented education. Generally, society is fond of preserving customs and these customs are sometimes treated as culture of the society. Many customs and traditions are based on religion. Religion is originated in consideration with the prevalent situation. Though idea about emancipation in many religions is the same, the ways in each religion are different. Individuals' behavior according to each religion therefore differs. Individual tries to safeguard the behavior, we call it culture. The sanskaras are transmitted from one generation to another. These are the ideal behavior patterns of society. As there are so many religions and different sects within a religion, individuals are free to decide their ideal behavior within the religion and within sect of each religion. If we try to mold the public through religious and moral education, there is possibility of a religious and cultural struggle in a secular country like India. Religious and moral education is possible in a country where only one religion is dominant. Society is dynamic and values that are created in political, economic and social fields are subject to change in these fields. An individual and society exist by the assimilation of these values. Society thus becomes dynamic. For example, the rising of 21st century is a gift of science age. Society has to accept behavior and thoughts in consonant with the age of science. This is the accepted behavior of an individual. Example, the moon is not a god but a starlight. It is pertinent to mention some values and their definitions. First, human value, which consists of number 1, truthfulness, to have constant practice to approach the reality of truthfulness. Number 2, constructivity, to help for good undertaking. Number 3, sacrifice, to help without the selfish motive. Number 4, sincerity, to work in stipulated time as assigned. Number 5, self control, to have control on individual's mind for action. Number 6, altruism, to behave with others with love and to consider the well-being and happiness first. Number 7, scientific vision, to find out scientific reason of a problem. Second, national value or constitutional value. Each country has its own independent constitution in which specific values are included. They are called national values or constitutional values. Next, social value. Each country preserves some values according to its culture and these values are preserved, land protected, Dr. Chillan has fixed the following values of Indian society, namely pity, self-control, universal brotherhood, honesty, respect and faith. Next in the line is professional value. Many professionals are in existence and each profession has got its own independent values. For example, following are the values of the teaching profession: knowledge thrust, sincerity in profession, regularity, faith. Next, religious value. Each religion has got its independent status, principles and rules. For example, following values are included in Buddhism: wisdom, character and pity. Some values are common to all religions, whereas some values are attached to a particular religion only and they are the specialities of that particular religion. Next, aesthetic value. Literature and arts have got their fixed criteria and roles. They are investigated and are fixed. Dear students, let us talk about the various components of value oriented education, which include: number 1, moral education; number 2, environmental education; number 3, population education; number 4, human rights and duties; number 5, health education; number 6, Indian culture; number 7, physical education; number 8, yoga education; and last, history of Indian freedom movement. The aforementioned components should be included in curriculum and it should be so framed to give zest to various learning experiences through the media of subject units. Value education thus will not be treated as an independent subject in curriculum, but it will lead to integrated development through effective value based curriculum. That is all about today's lecture. Hope you have enjoyed and understood. Thank you and goodbye.